An early morning accident today in South Toledo killed 2 teenagers and severely injured a third. Toledo police say the teens stole a car and were going more than 80 miles an hour when they crashed. The impact so violent the car ended up in 3 separate sections. Here's Sharia Davis with the latest on that investigation.
TPD told me this is one of the most violent crashes they've ever seen. All 3 victims were thrown from the vehicle after the car hit a light pole. Cops believe the car was stolen from Aladdin's Eatery in West Toledo last night. The crash happened several hours later, just before 3:30 this morning.
It almost sounded like a bomb. It was just so loud.
Cheryl Olson lives a few houses down from Broadway and Field. Olson was asleep when the accident happened, and the sound she described, she thought it was a dream. But when she was told there was an awful accident right outside, she rushed to the scene.
We was crying for them boys, because just to see them dead laying on the ground, that was horrible.
According to police, 19-year-olds Markion Cheney and Gregory Williams were pronounced dead at the scene, but 16-year-old Javon Jones survived. Robert Hames heard the crash and quickly tried to help Jones.
I went over to talk to him, and he kept on saying to me, "Can you fix my leg, sir? I said, "Just hold down." He tried to get up. Oh, it was a mess. The left leg, which is, he was laying down, the bone was just stuck out. It was broken.
At last check, Jones is still in critical condition at Mercy St. V's. Sharia Davis, Fox Toledo News.
Good evening. A traffic policeman was killed in a crash with a minibus in Homantin this morning while he was on his way to investigate another traffic accident. The police officer was making his way to Tai Kok Choi at around 10 a.m. to investigate a traffic accident. While he was travelling through the intersection of Argyle Street and Waterloo Road, he collided head-on with a minibus.
He was then sent to the Kwong Wah Hospital for the emergency attention. Unfortunately, he died at 11:47.
At the scene, some of the officer's belongings were strewn on the ground. To give some indication about the impact of this collision, it first occurred here behind me at this busy intersection. The policeman's body was then thrown from the vehicle and landed on this pavement through the barriers here before his motorbike skidded and landed about 10 metres away on Argyle Street. This eyewitness said an ambulance had been travelling behind the police motorcycle, and so rescuers were on hand with first aid immediately. The minibus driver is now helping police with the investigation. The accident forced the closure of parts of Argyle Street. The officer was Station Sergeant Chan Kar-wai. The 51-year-old left behind 3 children. Colleagues and family members visited the crash site this afternoon. Spokesman for a police union, Chung Kar-wai, explained that by law police officers are exempt from traffic regulations in emergency situations. Other road users are obliged to make way for emergency service vehicles that are displaying flashlights or using a siren. Failure to do so may result in a $2,000 fine. Investigations into exactly what went wrong today are continuing.
Drink driving is in the spotlight again after 6 people were killed in a traffic accident near Lok Ma Chau. The victims were in a taxi which was crushed by a medium-sized lorry. So that just... Dennis Ho reports.
The aftermath of a deadly accident, which left a taxi driver and his 5 passengers dead. It happened on the Chow Tau section of Castle Peak Road at around 7 o'clock this morning. A medium goods vehicle travelling towards Lok Ma Chau apparently swerved into the path of the taxi, which was heading in the direction of Lo Wu. The lorry crashed onto the pavement, crushing the taxi underneath. Police said the wreckage dragged along the road for about 50 meters before coming to a stop when it hit a tree. There were no obvious skid marks on the road, suggesting the brakes had not been slammed on suddenly. There were no survivors in the taxi, but the lorry driver suffered only minor injuries and was taken to hospital. He failed a breathalyzer test. He was more than 4 times over the drink driving limit.
The prescribed level of alcohol in breath limit is 22 milligram per 100 milliliters of breath. However, his result is 93.
The driver will be charged with dangerous driving causing death and driving under the influence of alcohol. The 5 taxi passengers were all steel workers on their way to work from Lok Ma Chau to Ho Shang Hang, where they work at the Correctional Services Department construction site. According to their co-workers, they take the same trip at around the same time every morning, and this would have been their last day of work before the Lunar New Year break. Distressed relatives soon arrived at the scene. And so did the man's co-workers, most of them overcome by the sudden loss of those who worked side by side with them every day. One of the victims was this man's son and the sole breadwinner of his family. He leaves behind a 10-year-old child. The boss said he had paid the man early for the Lunar New Year, and he promised to help the families with funeral arrangements. Chief Executive Donald Tsang visited the scene about 4 hours after the accident. 5 families have lost their men. What are you going to do about it? One relative shouted. He then pleaded for stricter road regulations and harsher punishment against drink driving. The chief executive agreed that drunk drivers should be stripped of their licenses and promised to extend every help to the affected families. He appealed to all drivers not to go behind the wheel if they have been drinking. Police said their investigation will focus on the state of health of the drivers, the speed of their vehicles, and whether the lorry and the taxi were roadworthy. Dennis Ho, TVB News.
The law was amended only last year to increase the penalties for drink driving and for dangerous driving causing death. But some legislators feel the punishment is still not harsh enough to act as a deterrent. 2 deaths back in 2007, which resulted from drivers going behind the wheel under the influence of alcohol, prompted a change in the law. The maximum penalty for drink driving at the moment is a $25,000 fine, 3 years in jail, plus 10 points off the license. When the new law comes into effect on the 9th of February, guilty drivers will have their licenses suspended for at least 3 months, and they must attend a driving improvement course. The maximum penalty for dangerous driving causing death right now is 10 years in jail and a fine of $50,000. The custodial sentence was doubled last July. One legislator called today for even tougher penalties.
Let the driver, to let them know if they violate the law, they will be suspended their driving license in a longer period of time, but not just for 3 months.
The Institute of Advanced Motoring urged drivers not to drink at all.
Although the law allows us to take a certain amount of alcohol, but it takes a responsible driver to take control of a motor vehicle, which, with due respect, is a lethal weapon by definition.
Alcohol in the blood, he warned, may act as a stimulant, causing hallucinations. It would also slow down a person's reaction in an emergency.
2 teenage girls were killed and 4 others seriously injured in a road accident in Yuen Long overnight when their car smashed into a parked lorry.
Police say the car was overloaded and they're looking into speeding as a possible cause as well. ATV's Eddie Lee reports.
The wreckage of the car suggested the force of the crash in Yuen Long at around 11:30 last night. The private car was travelling along Tai Su Ha Road West towards Yuen Long when it slammed into a parked lorry while approaching Lam Hung Chun. The collision pushed the unoccupied lorry 20 meters from its original position. Police said the car had a seating capacity of 5, but 6 teenage girls, including the driver, were in it when the accident happened. The car tires were found to be flattened, leading police to suspect the overloading had caused a puncture, which then caused the driver to lose control of the vehicle. But some experts dismissed that possibility, pointing out that 6 teenage girls were unlikely to weigh more than 5 men. Senior Inspector Chung Hong Yew of the New Territories North Traffic Police said investigators will also be looking into speeding as the cause of the crash. CCTV footage reviewed today from a camera just around the corner showed that the car was going very fast before the crash. It was not known if the 19-year-old girl at the wheel had been drink driving. A man working nearby called 999 after the accident. I heard this massive loud bang. So I came out and saw the car stationary there and people crying for help, he said. Emergency crews rushed the 6 victims to Tuen Mun and Pok Oi hospitals, but for 2 of them, it was too late. The 2 14-year-olds were certified dead soon after they were brought to the hospital. The driver and a 17-year-old passenger were in critical condition in Tuen Mun Hospital after undergoing emergency surgery, while the remaining 2 passengers were in stable condition. Relatives of the dead were distraught as they arrived at the hospital, only to find out it was too late. There were more emotional scenes at the crash site this morning as family members and friends held prayers for the victims. This is the second major crash in a week involving drivers accused of breaking the rules. 6 people were killed last week when a drunk container truck driver slammed his vehicle into their taxi in Lok Ma Chau. Eddie Lee, ATV News.